Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you very much for, I can't say coming out today, but being here today. And I'd like to start off with a thank you to the Snuneymuxw people and acknowledge and respect the Snuneymuxw on whose traditional territory we are on and whose historical relationships with the land continue to this day. And I want to thank Susan and Dave for being at Bevan and participating with us. And I'll just do a quick intro to Susanna Gentry, also known as Sue. And Sue lived on Protection Island. So in her Squalawin heart, she's still a Protection Islander. And she's on an interesting journey herself, discovering a lot about her history. And I'll just mention, she might want to get into this more, but she's discovered that she's actually related to Dave. So so it's really nice that she can introduce Dave today. So I raise my hands to both of you and turn it over to Sue.
Hi, yes, Susan Garcia. That's my Facebook name, the other name. Anyway, Dave and I met a few years back, and I was studying my family genealogy, and David is an extraordinary genealogist. He's done a lot of the Indigenous history for family history, right from the south up. Over the years, and so we kind of met there, and then we've stayed in touch, and we found out we're actually related through one of the greats, and sort of the Squamish Nation, Nanaimo Nation, back and forth kind of thing. So anyway, I'd just like to introduce Dave, and I'm really excited that he's got a studio now where I can, and very close to my home, so I can actually drop in on him, and I've been doing that a lot, and learn some of the culture, and the traditional art that he's doing is fabulous. So I'll just introduce Dave and let him take over, because he has a lot you're going to enjoy hearing about, and we'll move off. Bye.
Move off. Okay. Bring that. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. As Susan's saying, my name is Dave Bodaly. I'm a Snuneymuxw member. My traditional name is Lachaya, and I come from the Johnny family from Snuneymuxw, and my ancestors trace back to those who made the petroglyph park in Nanaimo here in Snuneymuxw, in our territory here. In our cultural way, when we're thankful to be at a gathering, we bring our hands in front of us and you shake them twice and you say the word Haitshka. Does everyone want to try that? Haitshka. When you use your hands as well as speaking, it's showing you're putting effort into it. And that's important in our culture here. My job is a cultural tour guide, or the ambassador of Saysutshun Island, right next to you guys there. So all summer I'm over there, and that's what I do, is I do tours over on that island. So each time I do a tour, I try and get a group photo of all the people that are in attendance at my gathering. And I'll start out with the stories, because I got so many stories to share in this short amount of time we have. But you probably can see from the dinghy dock, you probably can see this totem pole that's looking out towards the water there. That's our Snuneymuxw welcome pole, or our Saysutshun welcome pole. And on the top of that pole is an eagle, and an eagle is called a Yahwala. And underneath that eagle is a bear, and a bear is called a Spaath. And the bear is holding his hands up, like in the saying that when they are thankful, we bring our hands in front of us, and that's what the bear is doing. So the story goes that many years ago, we had what we called a transformer, and he transformed the things to the way they are today. So they said the way that things are now, they weren't always like this. So he came in the form of an eagle, and he was in a tree up above, and he seen a bear, a Spaath, in the river of Nanaimo, the Snuneymuxw River. And the bear was splashing away, and he asked the bear, "Why are you splashing in the water?" And the bear said, because I have no hooks on my hands to catch any fish, any skeleton, the fish is called. And you can see in the totem pole, he's got a fish underneath his arms here. You can see a small image of a fish there. And the fish, like I say, is called a skeleton. So the Yahweh said, if you want, I'll gift you with something because I can renew my claws. And so I can give you my claws. If you hold your hands up like you're thankful, I'll fly from up above you and land on your head. And when I fly away, I will leave you with my claws. And so the bear very quickly put his paws up. And after the eagle had landed and then flew away, he had seen that he had the claws. And if anyone has ever seen a bear claw or an eagle claw, which I have here, is on a necklace. The eagle claw is on my right and the bear claws on the left, and they're exactly the same. So if anyone hadn't knowledge of that before, the bear claw and the eagle claw are the same. And that's our story of how the bear got his claws. And our cultural story is, these stories go back 10,000 years. Our people have been in Snuneymuxw here for over 10,000 years. A little bit of history: when Captain Vancouver came into our harbor here, he came in his tall ship on his, with all the people with him from Vancouver area. Our people were already living along the shores, from the high rise down by the ferries going to Gabriola, all the way to Departure Bay here. And the Departure Bay was our largest site. When we have a village site, we have a row of houses. Well, in Departure Bay, we had 3 rows of houses. It was a very large village site. And when he came in on his ship in the harbor, we went on canoes. Our people went out to greet him. And he said, what place is this? Because there were so many of us came out on our canoes to greet him. Snuneymuxw is the name of our people. We had already been greeting with people and meeting people in different places through our trade routes that go all the way to California. And so he was surprised to hear that there was already such a large village site here. But his interpretation of Snuneymuxw became Nanaimo. And as part of my English ancestry, I could almost see him back in England trying to write, was there an S at the front or an N at the front? But he wrote it out as Nanaimo. So that's a little bit of the story of how Nanaimo name came about being. It didn't come to be special or famous because of the lady who made the brownies. Although she made brownies and went all over the States with them, and they became famous, but we were famous long before that. So that's kind of interesting history. Is there anyone that might have questions or any comments about that? That story about the Nanaimo or the Snuneymuxw history was one that used to be posted in our phone books when we used to have BC Tel phone books. There used to be a write-up in the front of the phone book telling about how the word Nanaimo came about. Yeah. So there's no questions, and I'll carry on to the next one. At the island where I work at is called Saysutshun Island, a place of healing and renewal of our spirit. Formerly called Newcastle Island for the last 100 years, but when we look back for the last 10,000 years, it's been Saysutshun. It's used as a multi-purpose, prior to European contact, was a place where our people could come and exercise. If the guys were canoe pullers, they would run around the island, and it takes about 3 hours to go around the island, and they would be ready to be in shape to pull on the canoes. It was also an important place if we had lost a loved one or if we were sad. We would go to that island and we would walk in that counterclockwise direction around the island. Again, 2 to 3 hour walk, and our spirit would be renewed, and then we could continue on with our life. So it's very important to have now this as a park, a provincial park. It's the only marine park in our central Vancouver Island area here. And it being the marine park because they have the boat docks there and our ferries going over there all the time. So I've been working over there as a cultural tour guide since 2017. In 2017, I had 4 tours. In 2018, I had 18 tours. By 2019, I had 36 tours. And then in this last year, because of the COVID, I had a dozen tours from the last week of July and the month of August. but a real honor to be called forward by my nation of Snuneymuxw here to be the ambassador of this important island here. Another important part of the island is, you may have seen them on Protection Island, is our blonde raccoons. We have 7 of them on the island here. And the story I wanted to share next was how those raccoons got to be the color they are. So again, the transformer came to our island of Saysutshun, and this time he was walking along, maybe in the form of a human being, but he's seen an eagle. And again, the eagle is called the Yahwala. And the eagle was struggling in the grass. And as the transformer got closer, he seen there was a raccoon, and the raccoon's called a halhales, and he had the eagle by the legs. So he asked the raccoon, "Why are you taking this eagle like this?" And the raccoon thought for a while and said, "Because if I hold on long enough, I'm going to learn how to fly." And he said, "No, that's never going to happen." "And how did you come to get this eagle's legs in the first place?" "Well, the grass was tall and I wandered through the grass and waited there for him, and he didn't see me and I was able to grab him." And he said, "Well, that's not going to happen anymore either. So from this day forward, I'm going to make you white so you can never sneak up on anyone and do such a bad deed. And to remember your bad deed this day, I'm going to make 1 in every 10 of your babies white." And to this day, we have about 7 white raccoons. We have one that's a ginger red, several of them that are pure white. One of them's white with a black mask. You can see even this one here has got a kind of got a black mask on him. But a very unique creature in that that we have them just on this island. And apparently this is the only place in the world where there's this high of a quantity of them, of the champagne raccoons, they call it. And to this day also, there's a battle that carries on in the natural, that when the eagle sees those white raccoons, he will take it if he's got a chance to. Because we say there is 1 in every 10 raccoons are white, we have about 70 raccoons on the island. I don't know how many you guys have on Protection Island, but they probably wander over there at low tide. So, but no one's really feeding them there on purpose on Protection. So they seem to come back and want to stay on our island because they're being fed by everyone every night. So it's part of the unique experience, if anyone's ever camped over there, that there's going to be raccoons. And sometimes we might be lucky to see a white one that comes into our tent. Hopefully not in our tent, but it's around it. So any comments or questions about that? Liz, do you want to answer that one? Yeah, I can see it there. Yeah. Okay.
I'm just wondering.
Sorry.
Oh, I was just wondering if they're actually genetically different, because the noses don't seem quite so long and narrow, and they seem gentler looking.
I never thought of them as gentler. They're as wild as the rest of them. They always say they look good. We say it's good luck if you see one, but don't try and catch it because they got sharp teeth and sharp claws. They are wild. In our culture, we always say, don't try and catch it, but get a picture of it and show me the picture to prove that you did see it and whatnot. So they are genetically different because they were saying that it's the genes are mixed so close on the island that they've lost that black genetic. So they, I don't know about that part of it because I asked Parks if they had ever done a study on it, and they had never done a study on it. So I was requested that BC Parks to do a study on this, on these. So just this last spring, a year ago, we had National Geographic UK came over to here and came and interviewed myself and manager on the island about these raccoons, and they were doing a story on them. Because they are very unique because they eat seafood. They're digging the clams, and usually their eyes are made so they can live in the dark and see in the dark, but we see them all the time in the daytime. But we say if we see them in the daytime, it means they're not well. Either they're hungry because there's not enough food to feed them overnight, or they're not well, so don't approach them, just get pictures of them. So hoping that helps a little bit. We're still working to study the, we always say the jury is still out on the decision of how they actually got to be where they are. But there is 7 of them, and this is the highest quantity in the world in one isolated location. Another thought or comment? No. Okay.
Well,
So the
Kate,
next, oh, go ahead.
Kate just said that she's been blessed twice to see the white raccoons on Protection Island.
Nice.
Oh, at the causeway, which is close to the totem, and one in a friend's tree that she took a photo of.
Oh, nice. Nice to get pictures of those. If you ever want to share those pictures, I've always put that out there. When I was working on the island at the little booth on Saysutshun Island, I would encourage people to get photos and then send those photos to me. I would give out my contact information where people can send photos. And that's always nice to do because it shows a connection of what's there. And it's a part of, it is a very unique thing on there. So.
And Dave, there's one other question. Lynn wants to ask why walk counterclockwise?
Okay.
Is it to do with feeling sad or not feeling positive? Is it unraveling of the feeling?
Good question. I always say every question is a good question because that's how we're going to learn. This is how the truth and reconciliation is going to happen, by that interaction, that dialogue. When we ask questions like that, it's a good question. In our culture, all of our ceremonies are done in a counterclockwise direction because we're doing something that doesn't just naturally come together. The weaving that I do is 4, all strands of 4, and because there's 4 directions, there's the 4 seasons. But when we do a ceremony, we're doing a counterclockwise. We're going against time. Like if we looked at a clock from above, we would be going against time by going in that counterclockwise direction. And the trail, when people come off of the ferry, the trail just naturally leads into that counterclockwise direction. And on the very east part of Saysutshun Island, which is kind of straight north of Protection Island, there's an area of the trail there, and they said that it was continual use for over 5,000 years there. So it's kind of neat to have that. We've always used that trail. We've always walked in those counterclockwise directions. So that was a good question. Yeah, always going around because the whole island would be like that circle. Any other thoughts or comments? Okay.
Oh, one other question from Kate. She asks, am I right that there are welcoming gates at Departure Bay where the houses were?
Yes, so true. And those are called our spirit portals. The one that's closest to the kin hut there, that was done by my cousin James Johnny from Snuneymuxw and his son James Jr. They carved that one there. And that one has 2 killer whales and 2 eagles on it. And the killer whale story is the next one that I wanted to share. So further over on the next island, over on Gabriola Island, there's a carving that's more in the south and the center of the island, and it's of known of a killer whale, or else a sea wolf. Known as a sea wolf, that it's a transformation, and our story that we have that connects to that goes back thousands of years also. And so the story was that many years ago, the transformer came in the form of an eagle, as he has done before. And he was in the fields in the north end of the island. And while he was there, he seen a wolf. And the wolf is called a stakea. And the wolf was howling. And so he flew close to the wolf and asked the wolf, "Why are you howling? Are you calling your friends? Are you calling your family?" And the wolf thought for a few seconds and said, "No, I'm hungry and I'm old and I'm blind and I'm hoping someone will come and feed me." And the eagle said, "I can help you do that, but you have to be willing to obey what my requests are." So the wolf quickly said he's willing to obey whatever the eagle wants of him. And so he said, "When you hear me call in the sky above you, I want you to run towards my name, or towards my voice, sorry." And wolf agreed. So then he said, "If you hear me calling more frequently, I want you to run faster. Run faster and faster towards my voice." And the wolf agreed to that. So As the eagle swooped away and started calling, that wolf started to run. And he started to run faster each time as the eagle kept calling and calling. And in this picture I have here was when I used to own a white wolf. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2016, but it's an example of how fast that wolf was running by the end. When the eagle kept calling and calling, that wolf was running faster and faster. And unbeknownst to the wolf, the eagle was leading him to the edge of that fields, which is on the very north end of the island. And that wolf ran straight off the cliffs and went right into the ocean. And when he came back up out of the ocean, he came back up as the first killer whale, called a Snuneymuxw. A Snuneymuxw is also known as a sea wolf, and that's the resemblance of this here, which was carved in the rock over 5,000 years ago. And so that's our story of how the killer whale came to be, that he transformed from a land wolf to a sea wolf. The land wolves travel in packs, and they're very matriarchal and very important in looking after their babies, as well as the sea wolves or the killer whales or the Snuneymuxw. They travel in pods or packs, and they like to look after their babies, and they're often led by one lady or one female mother, sorry, a lady. So that wolf that I had his name was Stakea, and he was, in our language, similar to the white raccoon, called a Stakea, means white wolf. And that was his name that he was raised with. It was a neat journey, and I have a whole nother story some other time to share about that wolf and how that came to be. So, is there any questions or thoughts about that? I'm hoping I'm giving good information.
There is a question. How large is the carving?
How large? Oh, if I stand in front of that carving, I could probably reach straight out with my hand to the top of it here. And it's probably about 6 to maybe 8 feet long. So it's a fairly big rock that's there in the forest. And it's more to the south end and center of the island. But it's very reminiscent of a sea wolf. And that's where we got our transformation from, our story from that.
Yeah, it's very timely. Terry Gagnon just told me that he saw some killer whales out by Gabriola, and they went down to False Narrows, and then they turned around and came back. And another friend just texted me, and she's at Piper's Lagoon, and there's 12 of them there. Wow. And they were heading our way. So people on the outside of Protection Island, keep an eye out.
Yeah, so true. And that's so important in our cultural way when we speak about them, that people start seeing them and they recognize that. And that's part of our cultural way when we talk about the white raccoons also. When we speak of them, they'll start arriving, people start seeing them. And that's part of our recognition of the spirit connection we have with our land around us. We have a very strong connection to our land around us. And it's important to always acknowledge that in our stories that I share and whatnot. So, is there any other questions or comments about what I've shared? I'm hoping I've given some people some good thoughts and some good ideas of things of what to recognize of our areas here. One more quick story I'll share is at the south end of Saysutshun Island, we have a whole bunch of oak trees there. And this is known as a Gary Oak Grove. And when I worked at the Songhees Reserve with my cousins, my family at the Songhees, Nancy and I had done some work with them, and we're doing a pit roast. And it's known that underneath the Gary Oaks that there's a flower that grows under there, and that's the camas flower. The camas flower is very important in our Coast Salish culture here because we were known as the saltwater people. We eat all the foods that come from the salt water. So we have a very rich diet that we have. And when we have the camas, when we collect the camas and cook that up, it helps with our diet because it's all starch. It's a very high starch content in the camas bulbs. And it's only the bulbs from the bottom of the plant that we would dig up in the summer times and then make a pit roast or a place to cook those. And after we cook those, we could either dry them and use a mortar and pestle and crush them up and collect the flour from it, from that camas, the bulbs. We would, in that dried state, we could mix it and it could be made like camas bread. It was known as a trade commodity. There's stories say that in Northern California, they found traces of the camas in baskets that came from up here, because we would pack that camas flour into those baskets and then trade them. With the colder weather up here, the camas needs to have our winters here, and the certain nutrients that come out of the Gary oak tree. So that's why they knew it came from up this way. This is the furthest north of the Gary oak groves. There's lots of them further south, and in Victoria, and then further south, there's a lot more groves of the Gary oaks. We have one tree on the very west side of the island, close to the boat docks that are there. And that tree is the oldest tree on Saysutshun Island. And it's said that it's over 400 years old, that Gary oak tree. And it has kind of a split, it's kind of split into two. But on the one side of it, the branches reach down into the water at high tide. So it's a very large tree and very noticeable along the shore. So, is there any thoughts or comments about that?
There is. Rick is asking, when you were trading, what would you be getting in return?
Good question, Rick. When we're trading, we could trade something as small as a headband, or something sometimes as large as a hat. A hat or a basket would be a trade commodity that was quite known in our community. We would have these baskets, and sometimes we could line the baskets with pitch on the inside of it, and that could hold cold water. And sometimes those baskets were just used for a wearing, or a hat was worn. This is called a Coast Salish style hat. And this one's a unique one because it has all the copper strips in it. But also when I'm weaving with copper, it brings a difficulty because it cuts the wire that I've used to tie it together with. So on the edges here, I have to keep repairing it because the copper wire is being cut by the copper strips. But unique to create something like that. So there's lots of things that we could use as trade commodities. Sometimes it's even trades as for fish or dried meats or other vegetables. When we make the pit roast, we would put other vegetables in with it, sometimes squash. They could even do clams and put clams inside, or oysters even, once they've been shelled, or steam them even. So. Mm-hmm.
Kate's making a comment that she's always admired your cedar hats.
Oh yeah, thank you.
One with the copper.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. So I would like to thank everyone for today. If there's any other questions, that's appreciated to chat for a little bit longer. I'm always willing to share. If you guys ever get to come over to the Saysutshun Island, there's so much we have over there to share with people. Years ago at our restaurant over there, we used to have a special called the low tide special. And so those people could walk across from protection at low tide, and they could identify themselves and get a discount at the restaurant. That was something unique. So.
Kate's also asking about middens. Are there any middens?
There's some middens right on the south end of Saysutshun, right by that little building that's there. That was called the boathouse. There's a wall that's built along there, and that was built in 1970s by the Parks BC, and there was another organization that was part of it, and it was all midden there, and it was really thick midden, and it was deteriorating fast by the tides and everything. So they built that wall to help retain it there. But the middens is a whole nother topic we talk about, because we could easily talk about that for half an hour. Because middens are a very important part of it. If anyone's ever over in the Nanaimo area and you have time to visit, my shop hours are usually from 11 until 2 on weekdays. I do have several items that I sell with my hats. I also make cedar or copper or cedar bracelets that I sell here. And so I have a sample of a few of them that I've made and since sold almost every one of those. And so I have to make some more of them again. So But in our cultural way, I'm hoping everyone remembers the word that I shared earlier. When you bring your hands and shake them twice, Haitshka. Please remember in memory of our Snuneymuxw people and respect for our Snuneymuxw people, please remember these are Snuneymuxw stories. And that was important that my elders shared with me prior to them departing, that I bring that recognition at the end of each of my gatherings. So thank you. I'm appreciative of being here.
Dave, do you know if Protection Island has a First Nations name? Is that still?
I'll have to look into that. I don't know much of it because that was established with the city of Nanaimo when the Nanaimo got established as a town or a city, and it always became a residential area. They said there was a few deer that went over there from Saysutshun Island, and it was known as a hunting ground, but I don't know much more than that of that. So I can look into that. So
Geraldine Manson would probably know.
yes, so true. She would too. Yeah, good point.
Her brother Gary says he used to come over here hunting.
Oh, good, good. See, so then it was that's her brother-in-law. That's her husband's brother.
That's right.
Yeah, good. Any other thoughts or comments?
Lots of people are saying thank you very much. It was a wonderful and inspiring talk.
Good, good.
Oh, and there was a question. When do you think, there was something about how we could go on a tour in the future?
Oh, good, at Saysutshun. Usually it's from beginning of June until the end of August, but with the COVID, we're not sure how it's going to go this year. Last year was by appointment only, and we only started the last week of July, and then I had tours during the months. So Petroglyph Development Group or newcastleisland.ca, the website has on there, you can look up cultural links, and then it has tours, and there's a phone number you can phone to book a tour. If you get a group of people to come on a tour nowadays, they have to be about 10 people or less. But in the past years, I had tours, some of them were up to 35 people in the tour. But having a small group of friends that all want to travel together, and they can arrange that through the website link there, or connections to the website.
And Dave, a few people missed when you were talking at the very beginning about where you're located now, and are you open for people to come and visit, and what do you do there?
Good. Okay, so in my shop here, those who weren't here at the very beginning, I have a weaving studio here in Bevan Park. It's right at the Red Barns behind the Cliff McNabb Center. So 2300 Bowen Road is the address here. And you come around past the tennis courts from the south end, and you'll see the Red Barn down below. And you come through the yellow gate, and I'm down there usually. And I teach classes here. I'm usually here quite a bit earlier and later in the day, and that's why I'm only open from 11 till 2, because I can have time with the youth and whatnot. We do programs in the afternoons with the youth, and everything's all through the COVID respect and distancing, and everything is important. We also have a carving shed, the next first barn over, and that's where we do carving of canoes. And so we have some demonstrations there also. Monday to Friday, 11 to 2.
Any other questions?
Any other thoughts or comments?
I would just like to say, Dave, on behalf of Protection Island Lions and Protection Island in general, thank you so much for your taking the time for us to give such a great presentation. Also, we just want to extend our thoughts and best wishes to Gary Manson and his family, and really the entire Snuneymuxw First Nation as they deal with healing from the pandemic, and hope everyone is doing well. We also need to take care of a little bit of business. PA Lions, on behalf of Protection Island, we're happy to present this honorarium to Dave for his talk. We really appreciate the time and the knowledge and the stories. I know there's just so much more we can learn about this area we all share. So thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you.
So before we go, I just have a couple of unrelated topics, but I've got everyone's attention here. Just want to talk a little bit about the Protection Island players. Have a little bit more information for everyone. The upcoming play they're putting on is called the Savannah Sipping Society, but however, I think it could probably be called the Protection Island Sipping Society from what I'm reading here. It says 3 strangers bond over their mutual dislike of hot yoga classes. They decide to meet again, this time on a veranda where they share their culinary expertise and a bottle of bourbon. It looks like they have little in common, but bite by bite, especially glass by glass, tongues are loosened and the stories begin to flow. Feisty Jinx joins the group and decides after hearing the girls' stories, she's going to become their life coach. So we do have dates. Protection Island players will be on stage virtually on Zoom, May 1st at 7 p.m. and May 2nd at 7 p.m. So 2 shows. So please come and enjoy the show. Our speaker series goes into March. This is our last speaker for February. And we do have an extra speaker. It's going to be 28th of March. So we'll be sending out some information on that. So we'll have 3 speakers in March, and all just as fascinating, I'm sure. So, and then just a reminder, games night every Thursday night. So thank you to everyone. Thanks again to Dave and Sue and to Liz for stick handling of this whole thing, and always to Emily for setting this up.